There are quiet afternoons when you find yourself sitting in that familiar chair on the porch. No TV playing, no phone buzzing, just the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. You hold a warm cup of tea between your hands and watch the sunlight filter through the trees. And a thought crosses your mind. I've been through a lot. In your younger years, you spoke up to be heard. You worked hard to be seen. You tried to stand out, afraid of being forgotten. But now, you don't need that anymore. Peace feels better than being right. Stillness speaks louder than noise. And you start to wonder, does humility mean I'm fading away? If I stop asserting myself, will people still see me? Or is this what it means to live deeper, to move slowly enough to finally meet myself? If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone and you're not wrong. The modern world glorifies the loud and flashy people, post every achievement online, argue to prove themselves, and shout to be seen. But Buddhist wisdom whispers something different. The lotus doesn't need noise to be fragrant. The wind doesn't need form to be felt. And those who have truly lived no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Humility doesn't mean shrinking. It means standing tall without casting a shadow. It means knowing your worth so clearly that you no longer need to demand recognition. In today's video, we'll explore 6 gentle but powerful ways to practice humility, guided by Buddhist wisdom. This isn't about becoming smaller, it's about becoming clearer, about living with strength that doesn't need to shout and grace that doesn't need applause. If you're 60, 65, or 70, whether you're living alone, caring for grandkids, cooking quiet dinners, or simply searching for peace in your days, this journey is for you. Let's begin. Part 1. Truly listen without needing to speak. First, have you ever been in a conversation and chosen to stay silent? Not because you had nothing to say, but because you no longer felt the need to say it. Maybe it was a family dinner, a team meeting, or a simple chat with a friend. You had thoughts, experience, a perspective worth sharing, but you stayed quiet not out of weakness, but because you understood. Listening isn't about giving up your voice, it's about choosing what's truly worth saying. When you were younger, you may have felt the need to speak up, to share your ideas in meetings, to prove that you were knowledgeable, to make your mark. But as the years go by, you begin to see things differently. You start to realize wisdom doesn't always speak first. Sometimes the wisest person in the room is the one who says the least, because they're listening, because they're fully present, because they understand that not every moment needs their opinion. In Buddhist teachings, this kind of listening is called deep listening, an act of compassion, mindfulness, and respect. When you listen with full attention, without judgment or interruption, you offer someone the gift of being truly seen, Thich Nhat Hanh, and you give yourself a gift too, the chance to learn something new, the space to breathe before reacting, the peace that comes from no longer needing to prove anything. Picture this: you're having dinner with your children and grandchildren. The table is full, voices flying, opinions buzzing. In the past, you might have jumped in to correct, to guide. But tonight you choose to simply listen. You nod, you smile, you let them speak. You ask not to challenge, but to understand. You realize they don't need you to fix everything anymore. They just need you to be there. And in that quiet presence, in your silence, you become the calm anchor in the room. Why this is strength, not weakness. Listening is not weakness. It's not passive, it's powerful. It shows that your ego isn't driving, that you no longer need to be right all the time, that you trust your wisdom enough not to interrupt, just to display it. In a world obsessed with noise, speed, and attention, listening is a radical act, a humble act, a healing act. So here's a gentle invitation. The next time you feel the urge to interrupt, pause, take a breath, let the other person finish their sentence or their silence, and notice what happens. You might just find that in listening, you understand more, connect deeper, and speak less but mean more. Part 2. Admit mistakes without losing your self-worth. Many of us were raised to believe that admitting a mistake makes us look weak. But the truth is, owning your mistakes doesn't make you smaller. It shows you've grown. A mistake is not a sign of failure. It's an opportunity to learn and evolve. In Buddhism, we're reminded that the self is not fixed. Every moment is a chance to start again. Your worth isn't defined by whether or not you make mistakes. It's defined by how you choose to face them. Picture this. You're helping your grown son fix something around the house. You offer advice on how to install a cabinet door, but you miss a step. The result, it wobbles, and he gently points it out. Years ago, you might have felt defensive, you might have brushed it off or found an excuse, but this time you just smile. You say, "Yep, that one's on me. Let's fix it." No shame, no self-blame, just presence, just humility. That moment didn't diminish your role as a parent. In fact, it brought you closer because you showed him what real strength looks like. The kind of strength that can admit a mistake without needing to protect the ego. Why this is humility, not self-doubt. There's a clear difference. Humility says I'm not perfect, but I'm learning. Self-doubt says I messed up, so I must not be good enough. These are not the same. Humility makes space for growth. Self-doubt shuts that door. Next time you make a mistake, pay attention to the voice in your head. If it says I'm so stupid, pause. Would you say that to a friend? To your grandchild? If not, don't say it to yourself instead. Try. I made a mistake and I can learn from this. That one shift in language can change everything. It turns failure into feedback and helps you move forward without carrying the weight of shame. Part 3. Share what you know without showing off. There are moments in life when you hear someone struggling to explain something and you instantly know they've got it wrong. You know because you've been there. In fact, you could explain it 10 times better without even thinking. But you stay quiet. Not because you don't know, but because you've learned that humility isn't about hiding your knowledge. It's about knowing when to use it and how. Imagine this. A younger coworker or maybe a friend is trying to figure out how to use a new software program. You watch them clicking through menus, getting frustrated. You've used that program for years. You know exactly what they're doing wrong. You could easily say, "Oh, that's easy. I've been doing this since forever," but you don't. Instead, you walk over and gently ask, "Want a hand?" You guide them step by step patiently without making them feel small. You let them try, encourage their effort, and smile when they get it right. And you know what? They won't remember how smart you were. They'll remember how kind you were because you didn't use what you knew to put them down. You used it to lift them up. Why this is humility, not hiding. You can share your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge without needing to make yourself look better than anyone else. That's what true humility looks like. People with real strength don't need to perform. They share what they know to help others, not to seek praise or attention. On the other hand, those who feel insecure often talk too much, brag, or try to impress because they're still trying to prove something, but you're different. You've been through enough. You no longer need to prove anything. You simply know. When you share from a place of sincerity, people don't just listen, they feel it. Part 4. Receive compliments with gratitude, without showing off or shrinking away. I used to be the kind of person who, whenever someone gave me a compliment, would immediately respond with, "Oh, it was nothing. I just got lucky." Or "That wasn't a big deal. I didn't really do anything special." Sound familiar? At first glance, it might seem like humility, but truthfully, it was just a way of rejecting myself. Some compliments aren't meant to flatter. They're simply an honest recognition that you've done something kind, meaningful, or wholehearted. Yet many of us, when praised, feel awkward, wave it off, or deny it completely. Some even feel guilty for being acknowledged. But here's something I've come to believe. Receiving a compliment with gratitude is also a form of humility. A real-life moment. I remember once after speaking at a Buddhist group, someone came up to me and said, "Your words really touched me. I feel so much lighter now." Instinctively, I wanted to dismiss it like always, but this time I paused and simply said, "Thank you. I'm truly glad my words could bring some comfort," and that was all. And in that moment, I realized gratitude doesn't inflate the ego. It deepens our appreciation for what we're able to give. Humility is not about hiding your light. When someone offers you a flower, you don't throw it away. You receive it, smile, and cherish it. A compliment is no different. It's a small offering, not meant to make you proud, but to remind you that what you've done, even something small, matters. A truly humble person doesn't have to put themselves down. They simply understand. Your worth isn't defined by praise. It's defined by living true to your values. So the next time someone says you did well, receive it with an open heart. They're not just complimenting you. They're recognizing a light within you that you may have forgotten. Part 5, stay open to learning. No matter who you're talking to. At this stage in life, many of us are used to knowing more than others. We've lived longer, we've seen more, and people often come to us for advice. But every now and then, life surprises us with a lesson. Not from a professor, not from an expert, but from someone much younger than we are. There was a time I thought I didn't have much left to learn, until one day my 10-year-old grandchild asked me, "Grandpa, why do people get angry just because someone disagrees with them?" I froze, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I realized I had never truly stopped to reflect on that question. I once worked with a young colleague, barely in his 30s. During a meeting, he suggested a completely different way of solving a problem I had dealt with for decades. My first instinct was to shut it down. I thought, I've done this for 30 years, I know this won't work. But instead of brushing it off, I asked, "Why did you choose that approach?" He explained. And for the first time, I listened, not to reply, but to understand. The result, his solution worked, not just because it was new, but because I was willing to learn again from someone half my age. Humility means keeping a student's heart. When we believe that only people above us or more accomplished can teach us, we close ourselves off from the countless lessons life offers every single day. True humility doesn't look at age, status, or degrees. It looks at truth, insight, and sincerity wherever they come from. We are never too old to learn something new, and often the most meaningful lessons come from the people we least expect. Keeping an open heart doesn't make you less wise. It's what keeps your spirit forever young. Part 6. Help others without needing recognition. Have you ever helped someone quietly? Something simple like fixing a leaky faucet, reminding someone to bring a raincoat, or carrying a heavy bag, and then walked away without expecting a thank you. If so, then you already understand this truth. Some things we do not for praise, but simply because they're the right thing to do. When we were younger, we often hoped to be noticed. We wanted people to see when we did well. We helped others and waited for a thank you or some kind of acknowledgement. And that's understandable. We all want to feel seen. But then, something shifts. At some point, you no longer need the applause. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've discovered something deeper. The joy is in the giving itself, even when no one is watching. One morning, I was out walking and saw an elderly woman struggling to push her bicycle onto the sidewalk. The front wheel had gotten stuck in a drainage grate, and she was straining with all her strength. I stepped forward, didn't say much, just gently helped her lift it. She looked up surprised, and before she could say anything, I smiled and walked on. It took only a few seconds. I don't remember her face clearly, but I remember how warm my heart felt afterward. A small moment, but it stayed with me. Humility is not about being the hero. You can help without standing on a pedestal. You can be kind without needing applause. A truly humble person understands even the quietest good deeds carry deep meaning. They plant seeds in the world. No one may see them sprout, but they still grow, still live, still spread. Some of the most beautiful moments in life happen when no one is watching. And sometimes it's those silent acts that shape a person others respect the most, not because they sought attention, but because their kindness was real. When we were younger, humility seemed like a virtue we had to practice. But after a lifetime of experiences, we come to understand humility isn't just a skill, it's a way of life. Growing older brings many gifts: perspective, patience, stillness. But without humility, even those gifts can turn into pride, stubbornness, or loneliness. Humility keeps the soul fresh. It builds bridges, not walls, and draws others closer through compassion, not control. So if you're in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, and you're wondering what will bring more peace, more meaning, more joy to your life, perhaps the answer isn't to chase something new, but to return to what you've always known deep down. To listen, to be kind, to stay curious, to walk gently, and to be small enough in ego that your heart has room to grow big. Thank you for being here with Mindful Healing. We don't need to shine the brightest. We just need to be real. We don't need applause. We just need to live in a way that at the end of each day, when we look in the mirror, we can smile and quietly say, I didn't make a show of it, but today I lived with meaning.